Richmond. We'll have the latest from the scene in just a moment. But first, we want to get more reaction to the third and final Leaders' debate last night. For more, I'm joined by the Federal Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg. Good morning. Welcome to News Breakfast.
Nice to be with you, Lisa.
So the undecideds in the audience last night gave Anthony Albanese a win. Is that the kind of momentum that Labor needs to take it across the line now?
Well, it won't surprise you, Lisa, that I had a different opinion about last night's debate. I thought it was a civil debate. There was a few freak character assessments on both sides, but ultimately there was a singular focus on the main issue at play in this election, which is who is better able to manage the economy. And I thought the Prime Minister put a very strong case and had a very strong performance. The reality is Australia has gone through the biggest economic shock since the Great Depression. We're now coming out the other side with a faster and a stronger recovery than all major advanced economies around the world. The unemployment rate is at 4%, the equal lowest in 48 years. Female unemployment is at its lowest level since 1974. We have real cost of living issues and global inflation is on the rise, and that's why we worked ahead of the most recent inflation numbers and the interest rate increase by the Reserve Bank to put in place cost of living relief with a series of measures in the budget just over 4 weeks ago. So we've got the economic plan to take us forward. Labor does not.
So why don't voters think you've got that, given the latest polls this morning suggesting that it would be a Labor majority government if the election was held today? In fact, an extra 12 seats, giving Labor a 5-seat majority.
Well, you know better than to treat those polls as gospel.
No, the polls have changed.
The last election just 3 years ago.
Yeah, but the polls have changed. They have improved the way they're doing it, the methodology. So I'm sure your internal polling is probably suggesting something similar.
Our internal polling is indicating that the election's going to be close, and there's obviously lots of battles that are playing out on the ground in different parts of the country. But again, last night's debate helped to crystallise in people's mind the most important issue at play here, which is who is better able to manage the economy? Who do you trust to keep taxes low, to create more jobs, and of course to encourage and enhance small businesses? They're the economic plans that we laid out in our budget, including a focus on manufacturing, a focus on skills, a focus on our regions as the new frontiers of economic growth, and the digital transformation that is taking place right across the economy. I'm extremely proud, Lisa, of what Australians have achieved over the last few years in difficult circumstances. And when I stand on the pre-poll, as I've done in recent days in my own electorate of Kooyong, I hear firsthand from small business owners and families how programs like JobKeeper actually kept them in work and kept them afloat during the most tumultuous of times. Yeah,
and in your own seat, you know, you can say what you like about the polls, but it indicates that you would lose Kooyong. Yesterday, the former Liberal leader John Hewson made remarks about moderates, saying that you've only got yourselves to blame because you didn't stand up and campaign on the issues like climate and integrity commissions that your constituents wanted you to do so.
Well, let me take those issues individually. Firstly, on climate, I was a strong advocate, so was Dave Sharma, Katie Allen, Trent Zimmerman, Tim Wilson and many others about getting Australia to net zero emissions by 2050. We argued inside the tent for that commitment, and it's in Australia's best interest that it's a bipartisan commitment. It's in Australia's best interest that we have a long-term economic plan to get there. My opponent in Kooyong, like the other so-called teal independents, they have high emissions reduction targets, but they have no plan to get there. There is no detail other than the target itself, which they can't explain. There's no costings behind it, whereas we're investing in microgrids, small-scale solar and wind in remote communities, Snowy 2.0 to be the big battery for the east coast of Australia, clean hydrogen with new hubs right across the country, from Bell Bay in Tasmania and the Hunter in New South Wales to Latrobe here in Victoria, Latrobe Valley in Victoria. We're focusing on new technologies to get us there.
And on the Integrity Commission, though, last night we saw it again, the Prime Minister not wanting to commit, the opposition saying they'll do it straight away and give Australians an Integrity Commission with teeth.
Well, we are committed to an integrity commission, but it's got to be the right model. And what the Prime Minister pointed out yesterday is that we've done that work. We've put more than $100 million in the budget. The integrity commission that we support would have powers that are greater than a royal commission, coercive powers. It would have two divisions, a public sector division and a law enforcement division, and it would be well funded. Where I disagree, where our party disagrees with the model that has been put forward by others, is about public referrals. The referrals should not come and be weaponised by the public. What they should do is they should come from other integrity bodies like the AFP or like the Ombudsman, as well as having public hearings. Public hearings, when you hold public office like we do, could easily see someone be guilty until they're presumed innocent, until they're proven innocent. And that is not the way to conduct those processes. They should be conducted, but ultimately it's the courts who are the final arbiters of guilt or innocence, and that's why the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions should be handed a brief by the Integrity Commission, which they can then seek to prosecute or not, and in the courts as where it should be. Because we've seen in New South Wales, when they have had these public hearings, that the actually Supreme Court of New South Wales has had to delay hearings, Lisa, and trials because they're seen to have been prejudiced by those other public ICAC hearings. So I think you've got to proceed carefully here, but we do have a plan, and that's what we've put out publicly.
Treasurer, there's a lot to unpack there, but we've got to move on because we're running out of time. I do want to ask you, are you comfortable with people on the minimum wage getting an effective pay cut?
Well, let me be very clear. We have taken steps across the board to ease that cost of living for people, to deal with the higher inflation rates that we're seeing right now, including tax relief, which is putting more money into people's pockets, including halving the fuel excise, including the $250 payments to pensioners and carers and making medicines more affordable and accessible. What Anthony Albanese did just 2 days ago was again make policy up on the run. It's been an accepted practice by both sides of politics that it's the Independent Fair Work Commission that determines what the wages and the increases will be. We have in Australia a minimum wage which is the highest in the world at above $40,000. We have seen under Labor 3 out of 6 years when they were last in government real wages falling. Under us 7 out of 8 years those real wages have been increasing for people on the minimum wage.
Josh Frydenberg, thanks for your time this morning.
My pleasure.